Hey everyone. So if you've been keeping up with the media, I guess, then you've most definitely heard about the new season of Stranger Things. And I guess at this point it isn't much of a spoiler anymore, but during the final episode, Metallica's masterpiece of a song, Master of Puppets, made an appearance, which not only made all the metal gatekeepers upset that the most popular metal band in the world had a song featured in a popular TV show, and only got even more people to listen to Metallica, I mean, God forbid. But now it looks like a TikTok user by the name of SerenaTrueBlood is trying to cancel only the biggest and most successful metal band of all time. Yeah, I think you can already see the problem there. Now, before you all leave your comments, I would like to preface this video with a little disclaimer. It's a shame I have to say this since I think it should be common sense at this point, but please do not attack or harass Serena at all, because that's just not cool. So before I actually start this video, the description reads, I find it interesting that they only cared about gatekeeping in their fandom when they started getting big. A Gabe from Stranger Things. I only care about what lines they are pockets. Like, if you're gonna try and cancel the biggest metal band of all time, then at least double check your spelling or go back to English class. Also, dare do I need to say this again, but Metallica is literally the biggest metal band of all time. They already got enough money in their pockets even before Master of Puppets was in Stranger Things. It's not like they were some unknown band that all of a sudden got popular because of it, or that their popularity was in any way decreasing. Like, the Black Album is still charting even 31 years later. But anyways, let's just hear what she had to say and what exactly made her turn off the comments.
Welcome back to Your Fav Problematic. On this episode, we're going to be covering Metallica. This band is ancient, so let's just jump straight in because it's going to be very, very long. But before we start, let's have some content warnings. And starting off with a bang, there is their anti-Semitism. First, there's this picture of Hetfield and Ulrich doing a Nazi salute.
So yeah, that is James with his finger over his lip trying to mimic Hitler. Definitely not a good thing. Like, it doesn't matter if they were drunk because they were very drunk all throughout the 80s. However, this is most likely a photo that is at least 30 years old. Now you might be asking, why do I bring this up? Well, I'll get to that in a bit.
More recently, Hetfield plays on this guitar that contains iron crosses. And if you don't know, iron crosses are neo-Nazi dog whistle symbols.
So yeah, one of the guitars that James uses during shows is a Les Paul with an iron cross. And yes, while iron crosses are associated with Nazis, this is a pretty dumb claim to make because there's like plenty of companies that use iron crosses as their logos. For all my skateboarders out there, you'll know that the logo for Independent is literally an iron cross. And there's definitely plenty of other examples out there. And also, Lemmy Kilmister from the band Motorhead, he would wear an iron cross necklace all the time. But God forbid James Hetfield plays a guitar with an iron cross on it. Like, I swear to God, next thing I know, people are going to be canceling Lemmy Kilmister for simply collecting Nazi memorabilia.
Then there's also the fact that he hung out with Kerry King, this Aryan Brotherhood looking motherfucker right here, who is obviously very proud to be wearing a Confederate flag.
Oh boy, so now we have a photo of James and Kerry King from Slayer wearing a shirt that says, you wear your X and I'll wear mine. Now the whole you wear your X thing, I'll wear mine, I'm assuming is referencing Malcolm X. And again, this is a very dumb claim to make simply because James has no control over what Kerry King wears. And I'm pretty sure people like 30 years ago didn't really care all that much about a Confederate flag. Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't have, but like, if you were to watch old concert footage of like Lynyrd Skynyrd, for example, from like the 70s, they always had a giant Confederate flag in the back and no one really cared. Like, again, I'm not trying to defend their use of it, but I'm just trying to explain how it was more normalized back then than it is today, or that not as many people were offended by the Confederate flag as they are today. But I will say though, it is very cringe for Kerry to be wearing that Confederate flag shirt. But it is also cringe to pin the blame on James because, like I said earlier, James has no control over what Kerry King wears. I think even like anybody with common sense can figure that out. Also, it's a little funny that you called Kerry King an Aryan Brotherhood motherfucker when the lead singer of Slayer, Tom Araya, is literally Chilean.
And then a video of one of their former members doing a Nazi salute and march.
I don't think I need to rehash what I said earlier about James and Lars doing the Nazi salute, but I agree, this isn't cool.
Next up, there's some more racism.
And I heard James say about Ice-T, because Ice-T was supposed to join us on the tour. He said, I don't want to share my stage with a N-word.
So here she's claiming that James is racist for saying that he doesn't want to share the stage with Ice-T of Body Count, except he supposedly called him the N-word. And then she shows another clip from an MTV News report where Axl Rose, of all people, claims that James did in fact say this. Now, whether he did or not, it's not cool for James to use that word like at all, but also I'm very skeptical as Axl Rose as a source because for those who don't know, he actually used the N-word in one of his songs called 1 in a Million, and Axl Rose is known for being an absolute lunatic and having a hate boner toward Metallica, so honestly I have no idea if James actually did call Ice-T the N-word, but like I said, if he did, then that's not cool at all, and I'll just leave it at that.
Then there's his racism against East Asian people. And his use of the O word.
Okay, so at first, like when I first watched this video, I actually didn't know what she meant by the O word. But after doing a little bit of research, I think she means the word Oriental, which I have no idea if using that word will get this video demonetized, but whatever.
And making fun of the call to stop calling people that word.
You don't know Kung Fu! All our Oriental fans. Smashing Metallica record. Isn't it Asian? Politically sensitive? Wow, man, I'm really enjoying.
Alright, so James is doing the whole slanty-eyed thing, you know, mocking East Asians. And it looked like Kirk didn't really find that joke too funny because, for those who don't know, Kirk Hammett is Filipino. So as I'm sure you can understand at this point, that James Hetfield has done quite a number of questionable and very cringy things in the past. You know, throwing up a Nazi salute, mocking East Asians, etc. Now as I said earlier, this was all like 30 years ago. And 30 years is a long time. Plenty of time, in fact, for someone to change. Like, for example, right, I'm 18, and I've done a lot of cringy, questionable things in the past because, you know, back then I was an edgelord. And I've said some very edgy shit, which is, like, not very funny. And like, I'm sure everybody is guilty of doing something cringy or questionable in the past. And I'm not gonna try and be like, oh, the world has gotten too sensitive. But these people tend to forget that the world was a much different place 20 to 30 years ago, hell, even 10 years ago. And even famous celebrities like actors and musicians are guilty of these things. Hell, call me crazy, but I think Serena here is guilty of doing the same. Look, all I'm trying to say here is no one is clean. But, carrying on.
Then there was this statement that he was praised for speaking out against racism. Even though at the beginning of it, they talk about how they don't care who you voted for. As if Trump supporters weren't supporting racist policies. If you care enough about racism to denounce it, then you should probably care about who people are voting for because those people influence policies that are racist. But don't worry, they spoke about Black Lives Matter. All of them did. Except for the lead singer, of course. And they did that with some black squares, no resources, and no donations.
Yeah, maybe because James doesn't have any social media? Like, maybe that thought didn't cross your mind at first? I don't know, I guess I just don't understand your thought process on that.
Next up is how they made fun of addiction, mental health, and suicide. First, there's how they mocked Lane Staley's drug addiction by motioning needles going into their arms.
Now here she shows a couple clips of James poking fun at Lane Staley of Alice in Chains because he was a drug addict and would eventually overdose, which someone actually did throw a shoe at James because of it. Rightfully so, because that just isn't cool.
What I find weird about this is that they are so quick to make fun of somebody's drug addiction, but when James himself was put into rehab, that's when they started taking drug addiction seriously. But of course they only care about issues when it pertains to them.
Yeah, that's another thing I will agree with. Back in the 80s and 90s, it seemed like Metallica weren't exactly the nicest of people, especially James and Lars, and it was very cringe of them to be poking fun at Lane Staley like, haha, he didn't get the fucking message of Master of Puppets that drugs will kill you. He's silly. I'm gonna pretend to shoot needles through my arms because I'm so funny. While I'm at it, I'm gonna bully Jason out of the fucking band. But then once James is in rehab for his alcohol addiction, that's when they're all of a sudden like, hey guys, so recently our lead singer James Hetfield admitted himself into rehab for his alcohol addiction. And addiction is a very serious topic. And Metallica is all about community and bringing everybody together. So if you know anybody who is currently struggling with addiction, please contact the number on the screen. I doubt they actually made something like that, but at least that's how I'd assume they would have made it.
And finally, there's how they mocked Kurt Cobain's suicide, days after it happened.
What color was Kurt Cobain's eyes? Blue. What blew this way, one blew that. Who has 4 arms and 4 legs and works at McDonald's? The remaining members of Nirvana.
Okay, just to clarify, that concert was from June 12th, 1994. Kurt Cobain died on April 5th, 1994. So that was more than just days after it happened, but I definitely agree. It wasn't cool of them to make jokes like that, especially since Kurt was a big Metallica fan, and the fact that he was a good friend of Kirk Hammett.
There's probably much more of this considering that they're a band full of white men from the 80s, but this is all I can find for right now. So if I missed anything, please let me know.
I think you need to double check your research because Metallica are not a band of 4 white guys. As I said earlier, Kirk Hammett is Filipino and Robert Trujillo is half Mexican and Native American. And also, Metallica's original lead guitar player, even before Dave Mustaine, was a guy named Lloyd Grant who was Jamaican and played the guitar solos on Metallica's first ever recording. So I do think Serena did bring up some valid points about Metallica, but I do think it's rather dumb for her to try and cancel only the biggest and most successful metal band of all time. They've sold millions of records, hundreds of thousands of tickets, and they're all multi-millionaires, so there's basically no point in trying to cancel them. That, and I think they've all become completely different people, especially James and Lars. And I'm sure now that they're all pushing 60, they're not saying these absurd and cringy things during their shows anymore. And if people are able to forgive James and Lars 30 years ago, then I think people should do the same with Serena, because while I do agree with some of her points, she also did say some things that were just straight up incorrect and made her look rather cringe. And also, I found this to be quite funny. She tried canceling Metallica, yet she's posted videos on her TikTok of her painting their album covers on her wall, and then proceeds to paint the album covers of Kill 'Em All and Saint Anger. I don't know, it just really makes me question her motives with this video. If it was to try and get a reaction out of people, then it definitely worked. But if it was to try and cancel only the biggest and most successful metal band of all time, then I'm sorry, but that was just hilariously stupid. And I think it's a bit of a no-brainer if your series is called Is Your Favorite Problematic, and you cover like almost anybody who was popular in the last like 20 to 30 years. You're obviously gonna dig some stuff up that wouldn't be acceptable today. So I just wanted to respond to this video since I myself am quite a big fan of Metallica. And like I said, I do think it's a bit stupid that someone is trying to cancel only the biggest and most successful metal band of all time. Like, can you get mad at the things they've done? Absolutely. Like, for example, if you're a Metallica fan, then you would know all about how James and Lars treated Jason Newsted during his time in the band. And he was definitely a contributing factor to Metallica's live energy. And it's just really sad to hear what happened to him. But should you try and cancel their careers when they're already at the top of the game? Yeah, no. Until next time, please pay attention in English class, and please do better research. I still can't believe you did your old man dirty like that.